We've just been over at the British Library here in London, and now we're at another great building. In fact, this has got to be one of my favorite buildings in all of London. Look at that facade there. They don't make buildings like that anymore. It would be too expensive to make such a gorgeous building. This is over 100 years old. This is the Renaissance Hotel at St. Pancras Railway Station. In fact, we're right next door to the British Library. And now this is where I used to come an awful lot to get to the British Library because my tube is just downstairs. What's fascinating, this is over 100 years ago. Back in those days, they would come to this hotel day before that they would take their trip. I understand that the Flying Scotsman would go from this station, which is just on the other side of this building. The station begins, and they would come the night before, have all their most beautiful dresses and suits, and they would have big celebrations. They would have dances, and of course they would have banquets with all their best clothes, go to sleep that night, sleep right through the night, and then they'd wake up the next morning and get on the train. That's what I've been told. Now, today, of course, it has been refurbished and made into a hotel again, much like in the old days. Gorgeous hotel, resplendent. I think the best building in all of London. My favorite. I know others would dispute that, but that is my favorite. Maybe because I'm here so often, I come by it all the time to get to the library. But let's just take that idea of best. Greatest wonder in the wonders of the world, and that's what, of course, the Hadith talk about, al-Masabih, that we referred to over in the previous video, that Muslims claim about their Qur'an. This is the greatest wonder in the wonder of the world. This book here, it cannot be equaled. I was down at Trafalgar Square a number of years ago. Sheikh Omar Bakri Muhammad, the leader and creator of the Muhajirun Party, the most radical group here in London, in fact in all of Britain, he would have every summer in August, late August, they would take over Trafalgar Square. It's about 3 miles in that direction. And they would have about 5,000 Muslims there. And then he would be up on Nelson's Column, on the plinth there, and he would introduce a whole long line of converts, one after the other. They would give their testimony of why they had come to Islam. 5,000 people would be yelling, Allahu Akbar, Bismillah, Al-Rahman, Alhamdulillah. They would be repeating these phrases over and over again. And one of these rallies, I was there in the crowd, and Sheikh Umar Bakri saw me, and he had me come up and get on the plinth with him in front of these 5,000 people. He asked me to do an impromptu debate on this book, which I did. And we went back and forth for about 45 minutes in front of this enormous crowd. After about 45 minutes, it was obvious to him that I wasn't going to acquiesce, and I wasn't going to really take what he was saying. So he finally then opened up the Qur'an, and he turned to this reference in chapter 10, he started with verse 37, and then he ended with verse 38. Or do they say he, that's referring to Muhammad, has forged it? So did Muhammad forge it? Say, bring then a surah like it, and call upon whoever you can besides Allah if you are truthful. So what he was saying to me, Jay, if you really believe that this is false, if you really believe it has all these problems that you claim, then produce a surah like it. Produce any surah like it. Now, you could go to other references as well. You can go to chapter 2, verse 23. You can go to chapter 17, verse 88. They also say much the same thing. So there are 3 different references where you can find this claim. Produce a surah like it. Surah like it is the claim that Muslims always encapsulated in. Anything. So I just quickly, while he was there, I just quickly opened up my Bible, and I opened up to Psalm 23. And I got there in front of the microphone, and I started reading it. And I started from the very first verse of it, saying, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the quiet. As I was reading it, they turned off the microphone, thinking that would shut me up. So I just stepped forward, and if any of you know me very well, you know that I have a very loud voice. My voice is just now coming back. I was at Speaker's Corner this Sunday, and you will see the videos of the debate we had on the Qur'an with Mansour Ahmad there at Speaker's Corner. And every time when I went for 3 hours last Sunday, and after 3 hours I lose my voice. But it's very loud. I built it up over the years. So I use my Speaker's Corner voice, can finish up Psalm 23, turn towards the Sheikh, and then say, now you produce a surah like that. Produce any surah, produce any verse that could equal Psalm 23. And I said, let me tell you why it's Psalm 23 is better. And I went through and started unpacking. Who is our shepherd? What is it about? God is our shepherd. What does he do to us? What does it say about us? And as I was doing that, he then asked me to leave the stage. Because you can see, he couldn't have me up there preaching that which he didn't want the crowd to hear. So I encourage any of you to do the same thing, because you will be asked this question. Muslims, whenever they get frustrated or whenever they run out of ideas, they always revert back to chapter 10 or chapter 2 or chapter 17. Produce a surah like it, simply like that. Go to your favorite verse. Maybe it's 1 Corinthians 13. Maybe it's Matthew 5. Whatever is your favorite verse, that could be any of the Psalms, because in fact almost any one of the Psalms is superior to what you're going to find in this book here. And then don't just stop there. Don't just read it. Tell them why it's superior, and use it to preach the gospel. It's a great tie-in. It's a great bridge right into the gospel. Because when you do a comparison of these two, when you look at them, though the claim is there, there's nothing like it. We would not make that claim about the Bible. We're not saying that this is the greatest piece of literature in the history of mankind. We wouldn't make that claim. It's not there to make that claim. The Quran does. And that's why you need to ask, you need to go to it, let them ask it, then give them the best verse you got, and leave it with them. And let them see, just even though we don't make that claim, it turns out the Bible is far superior to the Quran. Not the greatest literature in the world, but much greater, much more superior to the Quran. Well, in front of one of the greatest buildings in London, my opinion, of course, St. Pancras Hotel, St. Pancras Railway Station. This is Jay here at Euston Road. Going to be leaving London now. I'll be seeing you back in the States. Over now.